Hey guys, Julian here, and today I'm going to be showing you how to make cosmic techno like UMEK and Cosmic Boys. These guys just put out an EP together, it's super dope, and I'm going to be talking to you about a bunch of tips I picked up from listening to it and also from talking to these guys. Shout out to UMEK if you're watching this, dude. So yeah, as usual, you can get the full project file, samples, MIDI, presets, everything like that from this video is right and available at the top, and if you're a patron on my Patreon, check there because it's already available there as well. And yeah, let's get going. So, this is the loop from the intro. We're at 128 BPM, pretty standard BPM for this style of techno. The first thing up here are these two leads, which sound like this. So, basically what's happening here is there's this droning lead, which is just playing this brown, 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 kind of like constantly going thing, and then we have the main lead, which is playing more of a standard pattern. And what happens is, if you just have this one, it's kind of just 1, 2, 3, 4, 2, 2, 3. You know, it's very straightforward. But then when you add in that droning, that brown, 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 brown in the background, playing the root note, you can hear it's adding a lot actually to the rhythm. And this is something that I heard in these tracks. It's a nice thing because it kind of keeps it still pretty simple. You know, they're fitting in the same range, so it all just kind of comes together as one main lead in the whole mix. But then you also are just getting like a lot of energy from this drone lead and stuff like that. So yeah, so for the drone lead, it's just playing A. That's the key we're in, is A minor. And then for the sound with this one, it's made using wavetable. So this is actually made with two oscillators. You can see I'm using this beating 3 wavetable and then this acid pulse wavetable. Those are going into a low pass filter which has this envelope on it. You can see in the matrix here. And then I just have a bit of unison, and then we just have some chorus and a bit of echo to make it a bit bigger and, you know, more wide and stereo like that. Then we have this drum bus, which is fattening the sound up. I have a high pass filter to cut out the lows, and then this auto pan here is being used to simulate side chaining because it's on quarter notes, and I've got the phase on 0, so it's just affecting the volume. It's not affecting the panning. But then what's happening here is by putting it on the inverted saw wave, it kind of bounces up just the same as if this was being side chained to the kick. And there we go, so that's how I've used that. And then for the main lead, here are the notes. So it's pretty simple stuff in the A minor scale. What I've done here is I have this A down here. And then you can see I've just moved it. So you can see that's basically what's happening, but then by moving the A, all the A notes down an octave, or at least all those main A notes, because obviously this is A and stuff, you kind of get a more interesting rhythm. And then for this one, this is also made using wavetable. This is just a saw wave, and then I have a square wave here as well, which is turned down a little bit. That just kind of fills it out, but I didn't want it to be right in your face like the saw wave. I've also got that detuned a little, and then those are going into a low pass, which has this envelope on it. If we look at the matrix there, yeah, there we go. You know, makes it a bit more plucky. And then finally, I just have a bit of unison. And here I've used this noise mode. This is something I really like because you can't really get this in any other synth besides wavetable, but it just gives it this really cool kind of unison. Here's like the more standard classic mode. And there's noise. So you can hear it's really creative, and I like that because it's just a really interesting sound that you can't get anywhere else. Then I have this high pass filter. This is just because we're about to put this through a bunch of effects here, and typically when you do that, it can add some low end, so I'm just cutting this to make sure it's not going to, like, you know, accentuate that low end too much. And then we have this echo and reverb. These are both just here to give the sound some space. You know, a bit of stereo width. We've got the ping pong on, or we got the echo on the ping pong setting. And the reverb is pretty big as well. Then we have the saturator and this drum bus. So here's without these. And then with the saturator. And then with the drum bus. So you can hear it's a pretty stark contrast. Basically, the saturator just gives it a little bit more fatness and kind of brings it out. And then that drum bus is really the thing that's driving the whole thing home and really bringing out, like, you know, the power and the fatness in the synth, but you definitely need both. Like, sometimes it really helps to stack saturation like this if you're really trying to get the fattest possible lead. A lot of times you can't just get it with just saturator or just drum bus alone, especially like depending on the sound. This is very much depending on the type of sound that you're working with. You know, certain sounds are going to work with just a drum bus, and then certain sounds are going to need more saturation. But yeah, typically just having both of these can give you like a really big full sound like this. And that's how you hear, like, when you're listening to this track and the lead is, like, right on top. There we go, that's how we do that. And then I just have another high-pass filter after the saturator and drum bus to make sure that no more lows are going to get through and get in the way of the bass. And yeah, that's it for the lead. Next, we have the kick. So this is the rumble kick. The way I've made this is I have our main kick layer. So this is just two kicks layered together. We have this one and this one. You can see I picked these because they're kind of like best of both worlds. Like this one had really good low end to it, but not as much high end and mid range. And then this one had really good high end and mid range, but the low end wasn't quite as good. But then you put them together, and there we go. It gives you the perfect kick. And then I just have this going through a little bit of drum bus. And then for the rumble, this is made just using kick 1. So it was that kick I showed you that I'm using just for the lows on the top kick. I'm also using for the rumble. So what I've done here is you can see this is just playing straight 16th notes. It's just da 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 da. And then I'm low passing it. So there we go, and then that creates a rumble. That's really all you need to do, but it's a really simple way to create a nice and powerful rumble. With these guys' tracks, the thing that I've noticed is that I don't think they're just using like delay rumbles and reverb rumbles. That tends to work better when you want like a softer rumble. With this style, you really need that hard driving, like the bass just really needs to be like, and really this is the best way that I've found to do that. And then I just have that going through a bit of drum bass. You can see I turned on the boom. I think that really helps when you're making a rumble like this to add that boom. And it's also helpful because you can tune it to A since it's the key we're in. And then I just had this side chain to the kick. And there we go. And then on the group of both of those, all we have is just a little bit of drum bass. So here's without this. And with it, you can hear what it does. You know, it brings out the punch in the kicks. And it kind of makes the low end and the mid range and the high end more even to where it's all just kind of filling out the mix nicely. And hitting properly. This transient vibe helps as well. A lot of times, like if you're having a hard time getting that that you hear in the kick, if you're having a hard time getting that to come out, this transient knob can really help with that. And yeah, the next thing that we got going on here are the stabs, which sound like this. So what's happening here is we have 3 layers, and then this 4th thing here is just part of the second stab. So the first one here is just this little, all that is actually is it's a loop from one of my sample packs. I'm pretty sure this was from Techno Drum Loops Volume 1. And I just took that little at the start, and then that's just this, but then you can see I pitched it down a bunch. And then you get that kind of cool, like, textured percussion sound. So yeah, it's a simple way to kind of take something that, like, you've made and make a new thing out of it. So with this one, I've just got a little bit of reverb and a bit of drum bus and then a high-pass filter. It doesn't really need a whole lot of processing. These things just kind of put it in the right place in the mix. And yeah, and then we have this first stab. So these are the kind of stabs you hear in a ton of Cosmic Boys tracks and UMEK tracks and a ton of other people's tracks. I use these. Pretty much every producer in techno right now uses these. The name of the game with these is FM synthesis. So you can see this is a really simple note. It just plays A. Same thing with that second one. It's just whatever the root note of your key is going to be. But then how you make the sound is using FM synthesis. It's what's known as quote unquote like a donk sound. These are actually really popular in deep house, like you can hear. Anybody who's ever made deep house before knows how to make one of these. But yeah, so this one is just made using 3 sine waves here. You can see I've just got them set like this. The key to this is the octaves and then the envelopes. That's how you get that plucky sound, is by having the envelope like that. And then I've also got this filter here with the shaper on. Here's without that. So you can hear that's making a big difference in terms of just getting it to, like, you know, be really fat like that. And then finally I just have a pitch envelope. So here's without that. And with it. So then you can hear that just gives you that last little bit of like attack on the sound, like the transient. And then for effects on this one, I just have a little bit of echo and a little bit of reverb just to give it a bit of space so that it'll fit into the mix. To get that brrr, and then it kind of rings out. Since this sound has a lot of space in between each time it plays, you have a bit more room to let it ring out with the reverb like that. And yeah, and then the next one would be this stab. So this one is the same deal. It's just playing A, and then with this one, it's made also using FM synthesis. This is just 3 sine waves again, but then with this one, you can see the octaves are at a little bit of different settings. But yeah, same deal, just the plucky envelopes. You can see with this one, I also have the filter on with the hard shaper. And if we turn that off, so that filter shaper is important for really getting the fullness. Like a lot of times when you make these and they just kind of sound like this, and you're wondering why it's not as big or as fat as like the professional tracks, there you go. Adding that shaper just gives it a little bit more of a push to get it where you need it. And then with this one, I also just have a little bit of echo and reverb, very similar to the first step. I try to keep these pretty similar. It's meant to kind of sound like, you know, they're in the same world. But then you're getting call and response between the different textures. And then this layer down here, so this is just playing off of the second stab. So this is something I've heard in a bunch of UMEK tracks as well as Cosmic Boys. I do this in my tracks. A ton of people do this. All I did to make this is you just take an audio track. I'll do it right now and show you. And what I did is you just set the input to be whichever track you want to do your little like reverse with, and then I just recorded it. There we go. You don't need that much. You just want to take like this little piece at the start. So now we have this. And then what you do is you just put a bunch of reverb on it and make it 100% wet. Like that. And then we'll freeze it. And flatten it. And so now you just have like this long reverb tail. And then what we can do is we just drag this back to there. Or back to there actually. Yeah, there we go. And then we cut this here. And then when we hit reverse, there you go, you get like this perfect like reverse sweep thing. So that's what I have there, and I think I just turned this one up a little bit. You can see I don't even have any processing on it. I've just given it a little bit of a fade. And yeah, it's a really simple way to kind of make your stabs come to life, you know? It adds a lot of dimension to the sound. And then on the group of the stabs, we just have a bit of drum bus and a bit of a high pass filter. So just kind of tying everything together. Here is without this stuff. And with it, so you can hear it fattens everything up a lot. You know, it's really bringing these out. And also, you know, this high pass filter is pretty important because these stabs are going to have some low end in them. And you don't really want that. If you have that like low end like this, like that boom, like those frequencies, that's just gonna get in the way of the kick and the rumble. So this way, you still hear them, but they're not gonna be fighting for space with the other elements, and the mix overall is gonna be a lot cleaner. And yeah, and then after the stabs, the last thing we have down here would be these hi-hats. So these are really straightforward hi-hats. You know, we just have like our main closed hi-hat, just playing 16th notes. The main open hi-hat, which is playing on the upbeats. I high pass that a little bit. And then we have this ride cymbal. And the way I'm doing this ride is it's just your standard sort of techno ride. I've high passed it a lot. And then it's going through this echo here, and the echo is on the ping pong setting, and then I just have it set to 14 milliseconds. So you're getting this really fast delay bouncing back and forth, where it doesn't even sound like a delay, but it just creates that wide stereo image. Again, here's without this. And with it, and this is important because if you listen to these techno tracks, it's not just about having like a bright ride in the background. If you do that without doing the stereo stuff, it's going to kind of clash with the rest of the hi-hats. But when you do this, what happens is you put the ride into a different place. So now that just kind of sits on its own in the mix, and then the hi-hats are like, you know, they're not going to be fighting for so much space. So yeah, and then on the group of the hi-hats, we just have a bit of drum bus and a high pass. So here's without these. And then with them, so you can see like, yeah, you don't really need much. The main thing with these is just choosing like the right sounds, you know, getting like this fat techno hi-hat, and getting the right 16th note hi-hat, and getting the ride to sit right in the mix. Like, this processing is very important, don't get me wrong. This is something that you need to do, but it's not like, you know, it's kind of like set it and forget it. If you already have really good sounds, those are going to shine through the mix regardless. So yeah, that is pretty much it for this one, guys. I hope you enjoyed. As always, make sure to like this video as well as subscribe, and let me know what you think of this video in the comments. As usual, you can get this full project file, samples, MIDI, presets, everything like that from this video is available right at the top of the description, so you can work with this on your own in any DAW. And yeah, once again, I want to give a big shout out to UMEK and Cosmic Boys. Love the EP, guys. And yeah, thank you so much, everybody, and I will see you tomorrow with another video.